So today we're going to continue our discussion about Ghana, Mali, and Songhai kingdoms. And in particular, we're probably going to continue talking a lot today about traditional West African religion. Let's go ahead and make a bullet and write down Empire of Mali. So bullet, Empire of Mali. So the Empire of Mali is established by a guy named Sandiata. And I'm going to tell you the story of Sandiata here in a sec. But let's go ahead and make a 1, and we're going to write down Sundiata founder. So 1 Sundiata founder. So Sundiata, he's there in the picture. He is the founder of the Kingdom of Mali. So Mali Kingdom looks like this. All right, so you had Ghana. Ghana Kingdom is right here. And then Mali Kingdom is throughout this area here. Right, so you see it's a little bit different in terms of the areas they control. Let me tell you about the story of Sundiata. Now, the story of Sundiata is a griot tale. Griot, let me write down the word for you, like how you say it. You don't need to write this down. But griot is spelled like that. It's pronounced griot. I know, weird, but griot. And it's just a griot story. And what that means is that this is a story that's passed down verbally from person to person, generation after generation. That kind of explains the founding of the area and such. And for the story of Sundiata, how it happens is that even before Sundiata is born, there's a kingdom. And in this kingdom, there's a king. And one day there's kind of this wandering hunter. He comes by the area. And like we talked about before, hunters can see the future. So this hunter is coming by the area and such, and he gives the king a fortune. He tells the king, hey, one day you're going to be presented with a bride, and she's going to be super ugly, but you need to marry her because the kid you have with her is going to become the greatest king ever. And this king is like, well, I mean, that seems pretty legit, so okay. So here's this prediction for the future by this hunter. Remember, we talked about the other day about in traditional West African religions, hunters can see the future. So he hears, you hear that story and so forth. And the next thing that ends up happening in the story is after the king hears this story, this prediction from the hunter, there are 2 other hunters living in his kingdom. And these 2 other hunters are looking for this evil buffalo woman. Basically, there's a woman. She can transform into like this evil buffalo. She's killed like 70 people. So these 2 hunters are like, hey, we got to put a stop to this evil buffalo woman. So they're traveling around. And they eventually find the evil buffalo woman. They trap her in like quicksand. All right. Or in like kind of this like, so they kind of trap her in quicksand. She's just kind of like stuck, and then they end up killing her while she's like trapped in the quicksand. And they end up then going to the evil buffalo woman's like house, basically. And there she has a super ugly daughter. And they're like, oh, wait, this is like the super ugly daughter that we were like looking for, that the king needs to marry. So then they bring the girl to the king. King ends up getting married to like super ugly buffalo woman daughter. They have a kid. The kid they have is Sundiata. Now, and what ends up happening next is that Sundiata, in the story, he's super, super strong, like, muscly, like super strong, can like rip a tree, like roots out and everything, like just grab a tree and rip it out of the ground. However, he's so strong, he can't walk. Now, I know, that's weird, but he's, in the story, he's so strong he can't walk, so he just crawls around all the time. So he's just crawling around all the time, and then one day, all people in the village are making fun of Sundiata's mother because, Sundiata can't walk. And then Sundiata's like, I shall walk today. So he like gets like a tree branch and he puts it on the ground, like a walking stick, basically. Puts it on the ground and he tries to crawl up it, and climb up it so he can stand. But he's so strong, the tree branch snaps, walking stick snaps. And then he's like, okay, well, that didn't work. And then they're like, oh, hey, we'll get an iron bar. Iron bars are pretty strong. So they give him an iron bar and he puts it on the ground, tries to climb up it just like he tried to climb up the walking stick. Bam, that breaks too, that snaps because he's so strong. So then they're like, all right, so, walking stick didn't work. Iron bar didn't work. We need magic. So they get like a special tree, like a sun tree branch. So they get like the special magical tree branch. I realized they were using tree branch before, but this one's magical, so it's okay this time. So they give him a magical tree branch, puts a magical tree branch in the ground. Yeah, he's so strong, he's climbing up it, and eventually, he climbs up and he can stand. So as soon as he can like climb up the magical tree branch and be on his own 2 feet, then he can just walk forever just fine after that. In any case, so he can walk just fine now. And interesting in West African religion, everyone has magical powers. Again, we talk about how it's based on your job. And those magical powers can also be based on a particular animal. Well, they're usually always based on a particular animal. So Sundiata's magical powers are based off the lion. All right, so that's what his magical powers are based off of. They're based on the lion. And what ends up happening in the story after, he can stand and walk and he can move around and he has the magical powers based on this lion, he ends up getting into a war. And the war he ends up fighting against is a guy from the West. All right, so he ends up fighting a war from the guy from the West here. So there's a guy out West over in this area, and he's a magical evil wizard. All right, and he's coming over towards the east and he's conquering territories and he's coming this way. So Sundiata gathers up all kind of the tribes and so forth, and he goes fight a war against him. All right, so the two of them end up getting into a war with each other. Now, when Sundiata fights this evil wizard the first time he fights them, they're in a big battle. Sundiata ends up finding him. He tries to kill him, but evil wizard teleports away. So Sundiata's like, oh man, I can't kill this guy unless I know what his powers are based off of. Because if you can figure out what their powers are based off of, what animal, then you can kill him. So he finds out what powers the evil wizard's powers are based off of. So you might be thinking, okay, so he's like an evil wizard, so he must have like some type of evil animal that his powers are based off of, like a hyena maybe, or like an alligator or a crocodile, something like that, something like sneaky and such, But no, his powers are based off of obviously the most evil animal in all of Africa, and that is the rooster. That's right, rooster, most evil animal that there is in Africa. So Sundiata finds out that the evil rooster wizard, what his powers are based off of. So once he finds out what his powers are based off of, he gets a rooster. He kills a rooster, takes off his talon, and makes a talon arrow. A magical talon arrow, obviously. So makes this magical talon bow arrow, and then he ends up getting to another battle with the evil rooster wizard. Two of them end up battling. Sundiata, bam, shoots him with the talon arrow. Evil rooster wizard ends up dying, and then Sundiata ends up taking over all this territory. And there you go. That's the story of Sundiata there. I'm gonna make it 2 and write down Timbuktu, capital city of the Mali Empire. So he ends up establishing Timbuktu as the capital of the empire. You can see Timbuktu over here on the map. So 2, Timbuktu, capital of the Mali Empire. So Sundiata, that's kind of the little story, the real tale of him. He's not the most famous of the kings of Mali. The actual most famous king of Mali is this guy right here. This is Mansa Musa. Go ahead and make a bullet, and we're going to write down Mansa Musa. All right, why is Mansa Musa the more famous guy instead of the cool story we just learned about Sundiata? Well, Mansa Musa is the most famous of the kings because what ends up happening is that he goes on this really long journey. Well, not really a long journey, but he goes on this big journey in 1324. Now, let's go ahead and make a 1, though, first, and let's write down Mali's most famous king. So 1, Mali's most famous king. So as I was saying, Mansa Musa, he's most famous because he goes on this big journey. He goes on a Hajj. A Hajj is a pilgrimage. You do a Hajj once in your lifetime. So once in a lifetime, you go on a Hajj. It's a pilgrimage, religious pilgrimage to Mecca. Now, when he went on this Hajj, he brought along a whole bunch of slaves with him, 12,000. He had 80 camels. He had 300 pounds of gold, and he was just chucking gold all over the place. And people were like, oh, man, this guy is rich because, as we talked about before, Ganamali Songhai, they dealt in gold and salt trade. So, of course, he had a ton of gold. He was mining it. All right, make it 2. 1324, Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. So this dude, as that super rich, he ends up traveling through like Cairo in Egypt. He ends up spending so much gold there that the price of gold just completely bombs out because it becomes worthless because he gave away so much. And that's kind of what ends up happening every place that he went in. He's had tons of gold and it was slinging it around because he just had a ton of it. So when you go to Hajj and you go to pilgrimage to Mecca, why are you going to Mecca for? Well, you're going to Mecca because you're trying to see this thing right here called the Kaaba. Now, let me show you an image of it. There we go. So this is the Kaaba. All right. What is important about this thing? Okay, the Kaaba here. What's important about it is way back in the day, there was a black stone that fell from heaven, bam, and hit right here. Right where the Kaaba is built at, there's a black stone that fell from heaven, bam, hit right there. When that black stone fell from heaven, they constructed the Kaaba, not around it, but they constructed the Kaaba at the point where it dropped at. The black stone that fell from heaven is in one of the corners of the Kaaba. Okay, I'll show you the black stone that fell there and what it looks like. There's not very good images of it, unfortunately, but you can kind of see it through there. So they have like this little viewing window, and there's a black stone right there. So you see that black stone. All right, so that's the black stone that fell from heaven according to religion of Islam. Oh, this is for the religion of Islam, if I forgot to mention that. So this black stone fell from heaven. All right, bam, hit there. And when it fell there, they constructed the Kaaba at the place where it fell. I believe this is constructed by Abraham and Ismail, according to the Quran. The Quran is the holy book for Islam. So I believe Abraham and Ismail constructed it. I'll double check that. But yeah, so black stone from heaven. And once in your lifetime, you're supposed to go to the black stone. Yep, Abraham. So, yep, and Ismail. I was right. So yeah, I was saying you go here once in your lifetime. You go here. You go around the Kaaba several times. You pray to it multiple times, or pray towards it. You don't pray to it. You pray towards it. And when you do pray in Islam, you always face towards where the Kaaba is at. Okay, so you always pray towards Mecca, where the Kaaba is in Islam. So yeah, so that's that. All right. Make a 3, and we're going to write down attractive merchants and scholars of Mali. 3 attractive merchants and scholars of Mali. Yeah, so once he goes on this big journey, spends all this gold, people are like, oh man, we want to go to this place too because they got tons of gold. So then that's when people from Europe and other people from the Islamic areas in the Middle East, they started to go there. They started again check out these kingdoms of Mali. So they had to start checking out the kingdom of Mali. And you also will see as well that Songhai as well. You have people from Europe going there and checking things out. All right, let's go ahead and stop there for today.